The Barbie movie is bizarre.
Very interesting.
Now, I could go into how the trailers led us to believe that this would be a movie of good nature that would simply explore Barbie and Ken entering the real world and going on a fun adventure, because I know that this is something that a lot of people have said about the movie, and that in reality, it's just a feminist piece of garbage that wants to indoctrinate your children. I also want to make it clear that I am not the target demographic here, so I walked into this with an open mind, trying my best to see things from a different point of view, regardless of some of the very clear messages that the movie's trying to push. But I saw it yesterday, and well, there's a lot to talk about, I'll say that. With that being said, let's dive into the plot of this thing, shall we? So the basic premise is that there's a bunch of Barbies and Kens, and an Alan, all living happily in Barbie land. They wake up, they get ready, the Barbies mostly go work and take care of things, while the Kens kind of just do nothing and chill at the beach doing leisure activities. Now, right now, you might be thinking something that seems blatantly obvious, which is that the film, from the premise alone, is clearly trying to bring men down and make them look stupid, while the Barbies are the ones who are amazing and perfect and doing all the heavy duties. Now, under the context of a superhero project or an action flick, where the main audience that should be targeted, but rarely is nowadays, is boys or men, then it's something that I'd take issue with, and have many times in the past. But under this context, the premise actually makes a lot of sense, considering that Barbie is mainly a girl's toy, and that girls in the real world will let their imagination run wild, and have their Barbie become anything they want. It makes sense that the Barbies are the ones doing all the work. As for the Kens, well, from my understanding, they weren't so popular, and for most young girls, they just pretended that he was out at the beach just chilling and nothing else. So this also works out. So at this point, I'm understanding and accepting of how the movie works. Although it kind of pains me to see men treated like this in so many modern movies, I'll allow it under this circumstance. But anyway, as Barbie is going about her day, strange things start to happen that have never happened before, and she's told by the weird outcast Barbie that she must visit the real world and find the girl who played with her doll in real life. You know, going into the whole mechanics of how that even works is a pretty masculine thing, and this is a Barbie movie, so I'll just let it slide. Anyway, she's joined by Ken, and they enter the real world to begin their journey of finding the girl who plays with the Barbie doll, discovering the harsh realities of real life, taking their learning lessons back to Barbie land, and in turn, humanizing their characters to change how they view life forever. Well, kind of. Now the thing is, I can definitely see what this movie was going for, but they go about it in the most preachy way possible, with a clear goal to make men look as stupid and emasculated as possible, which in Barbie land is fine, but in the real world, not so much. Because during their time in the real world, Barbie gets objectified and insulted by everyone around her just for existing, and Ken comes to find out that men actually do have jobs and can be respected. Now imagine if the movie twisted it so that Barbie's upset and can't comprehend how people could be so mean when she's been called perfect for her entire life, while Ken is filled with joy at the prospect of actually being respected by others and having a real working place in the world. This could lead into the two of them meeting up again after these realizations, and Ken could be bloating and happy, while Barbie's really upset and wants to go back to her perfect life as soon as possible, to which Ken could realize this, and with his newfound realization of someone that can be respected and therefore care for someone else, him and Barbie have a beautiful moment where Ken is trying to calm her down while she cries in his arms. And now that Ken has finally got what he always wanted, which was respect from Barbie, and Barbie is accepting of not being perfect, they decide to tackle these challenges together and take these lessons back to Barbie land, where they can share their realizations and create a more equal world. Nah. Too bad. Because what actually happens is that Ken discovers the patriarchy and thinks that men deserve to rule everything, and Barbie discovers the power of feminism to stop the Kens from taking over. Now, in all fairness here, it's understandable that Ken would take things so literally when he discovers
the patriarchy.
But was the patriarchy so necessary? No, he could have come to the same realization that men can and should be respected without so clearly shoving it down our throats, and it's not made any easier when literally every single man that Barbie comes across is just an objectifying asshole. Anyway, after Barbie visits the chairman board of Mattel, aka the owners of Barbie, who are basically just a group of silly men with Will Ferrell being the CEO, Barbie returns to Barbie land with the woman who played with her version of the doll and her daughter, only to find that in the meantime, the Kens took over Barbie land after they discovered the patriarchy, and the Barbies have become their servants. So instead of a simple switch of roles, where the Kens now do the work and go about making Barbie land a great place to live, and the Barbies live their life doing leisure activities on the beach, they now literally just serve the Kens and do everything for them. What? I mean, the Barbies living on the beach and the Kens doing all the hard work doesn't actually sound all that bad, which is probably why they didn't go down that route, since it would actually make the Kens look good from that point forward. The best reason I can think of to why this didn't happen was because, again, the Kens take everything too literally, and because Ken saw a bunch of men who have cars and horses and happened to come across the term
patriarchy
at the same time, he just assumed that men should now have all the power, considering that the Barbies did so before. But even then, surely the Barbies should be the ones just chilling on the beach and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, now Barbie has a breakdown and becomes depressed because she no longer lives in this perfect world. And then the mom gives a speech on how she's sick and tired of trying to make everyone happy, which makes Barbie happy again. And they basically use the power of preaching feminism to bring back all the Barbies to normal, to which they then reclaim Barbieland by embodying the male fantasy, which tricks the Kens into fighting each other while they reclaim the council. Only this time, the Kens also get some kind of influence, but as the film likes to say,
nowhere near as much as women do in real life.
Then Barbie goes to live in the real world, and all ends well. I guess. So there's a lot to unpack here. Again, I understood where the film was coming from at the beginning, but holy shit, does it become really obvious how much they're preaching by the end. For one thing, while I can accept that this film wasn't going to be some simple Barbie and Ken adventure, which is fine since we don't really need another film like the Mario Bros, the whole patriarchy and feminism could have been done in a very similar way on a less extreme level, where you don't actually have to use the terms to get your point across, and not make every man in the real world look like a complete asshole. Having Ken realize that men actually can and should be respected, as well as Barbie realizing that she's been fortunate to live in a world where the men only exist to play on the beach and say hi to her every day, would get the same point across in a much more subtle way. And while it would still be pretty clear what they were going for, and the same kind of themes would still be present, it wouldn't be anywhere near as frustrating to get through, and it wouldn't feel like the film hated me so much. Now, since I've had to just recap some very horrid memories for us all, let's go over some of the positives. For one thing, the cast is great. Margot Robbie does exactly what's asked of her in every scene, from the simple going about her day to the emotional and heartfelt speeches at the end, and she's one of the best parts about this movie, by far. And I may be a little biased here, but I did really enjoy Ken, and Gosling was perfect for the role. It's pretty clear that this guy was written with Gosling in mind, and it brings out all the best parts of his acting ability. Speaking of Ken, I'll also give the film some respect for acknowledging that the character never felt respected, and only really existed as someone to earn the approval of others. It does spread a pretty wholesome message that you don't need to constantly try and please others, and that your self-worth shouldn't be based on how others perceive you. There's at least some acknowledgement of the hard times that men go through, and for someone like Ken, who never felt respected and always just taken for granted, finally realizing that he's enough without the approval of Barbie sets him free of any boundaries that he felt were placed on him before. But this is one of the very few occasions where the Kens are actually humanized or made out to be good, because before this, the Barbies take advantage of their human nature, or Ken nature, I don't know. And they act all submissive and sad in order to trick them, which is kind of fucked up, and I'm not sure this is the kind of message that we want to push to young girls. I mean, imagine a guy took advantage of a female co-worker who took his old job because she was more qualified, with the sole purpose of taking back his position at the job firm, leaving her unemployed or in a lesser position. That would be pretty messed up, right? Well, and as I mentioned, the film is way too preachy for its own good, because while there's clearly a target demographic here, this film has been made out to be a film for everyone, except, you know, men who respect themselves, of course. There's also way too much dialogue that just makes you cringe at how hard it's trying to push female empowerment. And while I'm not too worried about the whole
indoctrinating your children
argument, since I don't think that young children are going to understand half of what they're saying, and are probably just going to enjoy the funny nature and bright colours, it's definitely not something I take my future children to see. They can stick to the animated shows on Netflix or whatever. So overall, while I don't hate Barbie with all my heart and soul, I can definitely see what the film was trying to do, but what came to be was a very preachy movie that turns potentially good intentions into an avenue to push their own worldviews. And while there's plenty of positives, and I don't hate any of the characters in and of themselves, I still can't get over the over-politicized nature of it all, and it's not something that I would personally recommend. But hey, go watch it for yourself if you're curious. Just don't come complaining to me when you hate it, okay? Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Won't force you though, of course. And I will see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye.